Hello, my name is Rob Edwards. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. And today we're going to be talking about Season 12 of Doctor Who. And I'm going to give you my overall impression of the show this year, the things which really worked for me, the things which didn't quite land, and we're going to end with a ranking of the 10 episodes of the show this year. So let me start with the kind of main highlight note from this. It's the same thing that I've seen a couple of other YouTube videos about Doctor Who this year say, but it's still true. Season 12 is better than Season 11. Season 11 was a bit of a mess, all told, and it just sort of potted along at kind of round to level 5. And while there were a couple of episodes this season which I think were worse than anything we got last year, well, one episode anyway, generally speaking, the quality this year was significantly higher. And one of the things which led to that was an improvement in the quality of the writing. Most notably, that the episodes written by Chris Chibnall this year were not automatically the worst things in the world. So it's really positive, actually. Chibnall has upped his game and given us some episodes which I genuinely really enjoyed. Let's get back to the season finale later. Other things that I liked, other things which were really positive about this show this year. We got a series arc again. Still going to come back to that. We got a series arc again though, but that was great. That gave some continuity for the season. That gave a reason to keep watching, to push us forward through the series, and I really enjoyed that. We got plenty of returning monsters and villains, and actually, to be honest, possibly slightly too many. I'm worried that the takeaway from this is we can never have new, inventive, creative stuff because it's the old stuff which everyone loves and it's always so popular. I enjoyed some of the standalone episodes this season, and while it was the big arc episodes which had all the returning stuff in it, that doesn't necessarily mean that's what I want from every episode of Doctor Who. Jodie's performance this year, I really enjoyed it. We had a bit more nuance this year. Last year was all again a bit one note, but this time we've seen some angry 12 and some happy 12 and some dopey 12 and some basically flummoxed 12. So it's been great to see some range from the Doctor. Yaz this year actually had a couple of episodes which made me pay attention to her, and that was generally a positive thing. Good to see her coming to the forefront a bit more, actually having some personality, actually having some story. That is a great development. Against that, I thought Ryan and Graham both had nothing to do this season at all, really. Graham still got the best lines, still some great comedy moments from him, but Ryan was almost completely forgettable throughout. His only kind of really good moments for me this season were in an episode which ranks quite low, spoilers again, for this season, and that was Can You Hear Me? His relationship with his friend, and stepping forward and reaching out to his friend when his friend was clearly in trouble was a really good moment for Ryan. One thing which does bug me slightly is that we had a lot of good moments for Yaz and for Ryan and a couple for Graham as well, but we didn't get an arc for those characters this year. None of that really paid off. In Spyfall Part 1 we had this moment where Yaz, really confronted the amount of danger that she's in when she travels with the Doctor, and then later in the same episode is going, "Wee, how exciting!" And we got, Ryan being troubled about how he's missing out on his friends' lives by travelling with the Doctor, and how he's going to be changing with travelling with the Doctor, and we didn't see any resolution of that. And Graham's worry about the cancer returning, all really from this same episode, from Can You Hear Me? Lots of kind of turning points for the companions in there, which were not really referenced before or after. And I am slightly worried that Chibnall is going to attempt to pay off a load of this in the Dalek episode, which is the special, which is coming later in the year, and I think it's honestly, I think it's a mistake. I mean, I can see why you want to make the specials more tied into your plot line. I can see why you want people to come into them for more than just a bit of festive flim flam, as we got, some of the Christmas specials earlier in New Who's been just completely disposable, and I can see why you would want to make those impactful. But against that, we had the payoff of Ryan's father in Resolution last year, and to sort of pigeonhole that into a corner of an episode which, even the faithful viewer of the show might not have caught the one-off when they watched the entire season, seems wrong to me. And particularly this year, when we're having the festive episode so far removed from the main season, I think most people will have forgotten what was going on in this season. If the plan is to pay off any of those arcs for the companions in that episode, and if the rumours are to be believed, possibly that may be the case, then to have something so important kind of pigeonholed into a separate standalone episode is slightly worrying to me. Speaking of arcs, I can't not talk about the Timeless Child thing. I've had another week and a bit to think about it since I recorded my video review of The Timeless Children, and I'm still really not sold on what we got from this revelation about the Timeless Child and the Doctor being who she is. And to me, the big thing is, whenever you have a big retcon, and I've read enough comic books to be used to the idea of that being a thing, what are we gaining, what are we losing? And I'm not convinced the balance of this is in favour of making the change. What have we gained? We've gained a mystery about where the Doctor really came from. We've gained a mystery about her past lives and her work for the Division, whatever that is. And okay, there is some intrigue there, and that is a gain. There's some positive stuff to take from that. Against that, though, we lose our understanding of who the Doctor is. We lose the significance of William Hartnell's Doctor in terms of the Doctor's life. Not in terms of the show. In terms of the show, that's still there. That's still where it all began, and we still owe everything, really, to Hartnell's performance and Verity Lambert and all the rest of it that happened back then. But we lose from the Doctor's timeline Hartnell being anything special. He's just another incarnation in the many thousands of incarnations potentially that the Timeless Child, later the Doctor, has had. And that's a shame. That really lessens things for me. And we lose Gallifrey. We lose a modern Gallifrey that the Doctor can interact with in a modern way. Presumably, there will be stories in the future which address this big gap in the Doctor's past, maybe even next season. And okay, that's fine. Chibnall's allegedly got a 5-year arc when he sat down to write the first series of his, and I'm sure that is something which he's going to develop. But when have prequels really ever worked? I mean, really, when have we ever created something which delves into the history of what we know of a franchise, and that's really improved the franchise? Off the top of my head, I really can't think of many, and I just don't like this retcon. I just don't like it. And does that make me a reactionary fan shaking their fist going, "Rrr"? Well, maybe. But that's my opinion. There we go. You came to this video for my opinion. That is it. Before I get into the ranking, just a couple of points about the show this year. We continue to have the heavy-handed messaging of Who. And again, I've talked about this many times in the past. I am not of the opinion that Who should not have any messaging to it. It's always had some. But it has worked better in some episodes than others. I thought the message in Orphan 55 was really badly handled, but the messaging in Can You Hear Me and in Praxeus were better woven into the plot line. So, it is possible to do it well, and it doesn't always. And it didn't this season, and it really didn't last season. So, yeah, issue Who, I'm not against it, but it needs to be done well, and sometimes it's not. So let's do some ranking. Huzzah! I'm going to put my glasses on so I can actually read what I've written. And to look back at what episodes I've put in what order. So from 10 to 1, here we go. In at number 10, to nobody's surprise, we have Orphan 55. The messaging was done badly. The companions had nothing to do. The plot made no sense. It's just a bad episode of Doctor Who, and probably the worst of Jodie's era. Up from that is episode Can You Hear Me? I regret putting it in this slot because it is the one episode this year that really got us some focus on the companions, and there were some great moments for the companions in here. But for me, this episode just doesn't pull together. I love the stuff with Ryan and his buddy. I love the reveal about Yaz and her background in there. But the villains of the piece were so forgettable and unimportant against what the episode was trying to tell us what they were. Just a real misstep for me. I know some people loved it, not me. In at number 8 in my list, we have Nikola Tesla's Night of Terror, and this is on the list in this position because of its complete forgettability. It looked good. There were some nice moments in it. The Scorpions were great. The Scorpion Queen was not. It's a bit of a meh episode, really. It wasn't bad, but it wasn't good. So that's why it gets the number 8 slot. Moving up from that, everything from this point onwards are ones which, on balance, I think I rather enjoyed. Number 7 in the list is Praxeus. Messaging done a lot better. Issue Who more interesting in there. We got some great location work, which I loved, and an interesting principle, and the kind of calcification of the skin of the sufferers was really interesting. I liked a lot of Praxeus. Not as much as the rest of them in this list, of course, but yeah, that's number 7. Coming at number 6, we have the series finale, The Timeless Children. For me, I can't rank it any higher than this because I do have that problem with the reveal about the Timeless Child. Against that, Sacha Dhawan's performance as the Master was hypnotic. I loved it. Love a good Cyberman story, and the Cyber Masters look fantastic. But it really, really doesn't pay off the stuff that went before it. It was a disappointment, all told, and that's why it's at number 6. And in at number 5, a bit of a theme here, we have the other part 2 of a two-parter, and that is Spyfall Part 2. Again, these are all episodes, in this part of my rankings, these are episodes I generally enjoyed. I loved the kind of the battle of wits between the Doctor and the Master through time. I genuinely really did like that. It was a shame the companions were sidelined, and the companions we did get were just a bit one and done, really. But I like the episode. I did like the episode. So, yeah, nice. Coming out at number 4, we have Ascension of the Cybermen. It's an interesting one, this one, because when I did my review of it, I said I had no idea what it was, and it would stand and fall on the part 2. And we've already seen the part 2 is further down the list on this. And Actually, on reflection, I enjoyed the elements of this episode, the mystery it presented, the action it presented, a lot more than I gave it credit for at the time when I was doing my review. But it still needed a good second part to really raise it, and it didn't get a good second part. In fact, the second part really lowers some of the elements, particularly the Brendan thing, which didn't really get paid off at all. So there we go. That is where we put that, number 4. The top 3 episodes, I had a lot of problem trying to decide what order I was going to put them in. Ask me tomorrow and the list could probably change in order. But this is what we're getting today, so this is what you're getting from me. Number 3 in my list was Fugitive of the Judoon. There were a lot of moments I absolutely loved in this episode. All the stuff with Ruth and the Doctor towards the end of the episode as they're travelling towards the lighthouse and onwards was fantastic. The return of Captain Jack was like a shot of adrenaline into the show. Really just livens everything up. Amazing. But actually the rest of the episode was just a bit formulaic, a bit kind of flat. And again, the companions don't do anything really in it apart from interact with Jack. And emphasise really how much more interesting companions were back then, if you see what I mean. So, a great episode. I really enjoyed this episode, but it's not as good as the ones above it. So, if you're keeping track, you know what my last 2 are. And coming in at number 2, not quite getting the top spot today, is Spyfall Part 1. It had some silly business at the start, which I didn't enjoy so much with the car being controlled. All a bit kind of Atmos to me. But the build-up to the reveal of the Master was amazing. And the Master's performance sealed this episode as one of my favourites of the season. Certainly one of my favourites of the 12th Doctor era. And that was enough to get it the second spot here. But my favourite episode of this season, and it surprised me to find it at this position, but it is, my favourite episode of this season was The Haunting of Diodati. I loved the atmosphere. It just oozes atmosphere throughout. I love the introduction of the lone Cybermen. I think the visuals of him are brilliant, and the realisation of what he is and what he's doing is really interesting. In later episodes, the Cyberium didn't really do very much, but at the time it was an interesting problem. And the Doctor's reaction to it all and her big speeches about her responsibility for dealing with all this and how she had to go against what Jack advised because she had to, in the moment, save Byron. Save Shelley. Sorry. So there we go. That was my favourite episode of this season. And it didn't hurt it that we had some great little business from Graham as well. So there we are, another season of Doctor Who done, another set of Doctor Who videos recorded. If you are interested, I will be doing some videos about Star Trek Picard and Westworld when it comes back. I've got a few other things which I might dabble around with as well. So if you're interested in those, drop a subscribe. Otherwise, I'll be back with some more Doctor Who content when we have some more Doctor Who to talk about. Thank you very much for watching. If you want to see more about Doctor Who from me, check the box over here. If you want to see more about me as a writer, check the box over there. And there's a subscribe button somewhere on screen as well. Cheers.